How many members are part of your church?
In South Africa at the moment, there's just over 12,000 Satanists. Jesus, he was there in front of my face. And I was scared because I thought, if this is Jesus, I am in trouble. And he flooded me with love, with so much love. It's been quite an intense journey. Leaving the South African Satanic Church, leaving Satanism as well, going through 9 months of deliverance, and now being on this side of the table.
Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So today we've got Adri Norton and a returning guest, the most returning guest in the history of the Wide Awake podcast, Riaan Swiegelaar.
For real.
For real. This is your fourth appearance.
No pressure.
No pressure. And every episode just gets wilder and wilder, it seems. So today we've got Adri and Riaan in the studio, and we're going to be focusing mainly on Adri's story, especially at the beginning, and then we're going to get into some updates of our previous episode. But Adri, it's great to have you here. Very nice to meet you. I mean, I've known Riaan for so long, I can't believe that we're just meeting now. But yeah, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
So, I mean, just to get started, right? So you two were the founders of South Africa's first Satanic Church.
Yeah, we were two of the co-founders.
Yes.
Okay. And I know how Riaan got into it. How did you get involved with it? Do you want to tell me a little bit about your childhood? Did you grow up? I'm assuming you grew up Christian.
Yes.
So yeah, just tell me a little bit about your earlier years.
Yes.
Up until how you got involved in the Satanic Church.
Okay, perfect. You know what, Josh? I always think that I grew up pretty normal. You know, I grew up in an Afrikaans home, Sunday school on Sundays, went through the normal things you would go through as a child. Normal school, normal everything. We'll talk about Sunday school a little bit later. But in that sense, it was all pretty much normal. I did always have a sense of always questioning a lot of things and didn't always get a lot of answers growing up, or people weren't able to answer me, you know. But growing up, there was always this fascination with other things. So I had a fascination with history. I had a fascination with evolution. I have a lot of questions about God in that sense. And like I said, most of those things were sometimes misunderstood or not answered. And then I always felt like I saw things very differently to other people as well. And I think that also created a sense of being misunderstood growing up. And there was a lot of rejection, not just from peers and teachers, but adults in general as well. It was like, please just don't ask those questions, keep the peace, don't make drama here, like just go with the flow. Even in the sense of when you see things that you necessarily don't agree with how people perhaps speak to other children or people speak to each other. Like there was, and this isn't necessarily just in a home environment, this was in society in that sense as well. But yeah, grew up, went to school, went to college, did all the things, and I started working as a psychic medium because it was something that I felt pulled towards. Looking back, I understand why in a sense as well. Like I think there already lines got blurred between what is right and wrong, I think maybe.
And for those that don't know, I know Riaan's explained it before, but what is a psychic medium?
So that's basically where you perceive yourself to see things that's still going to happen in the world, and you perceive yourself to have a connection with the other side, so like the spiritual realm. I think a lot of that was already, I had a deception of what that actually was, and I think that was not authentic in a sense, but I thought it was, you know? There was already that sense of like, not fully understanding what I was getting into either. But went into that. That's why I met Riaan later on, because he was also working as a psychic, and I was doing like a group reading for people, and he was there, and we met through that. And then later on, there was this thing probably still is today. I'm disconnected with that world like quite intensely, so I'm not sure, but where people are like really into crystals and things. Like you see people wearing crystals and there's crystals in the shop, and you know, they claim to have all these abilities and all these things that they do. And I said to Riaan, like, I'm quite interested in this. Can I learn some more maybe? Like you work with these things. And at that stage, he was offering courses in those things. And so I signed up and we did a course. And we became friends in that time. Like we spoke a lot, and we both found out we had a lot of questions about stuff that couldn't necessarily be answered, you know.
Like what?
So in the sense of like, what is God really? And what is, like one of my questions that I've always carried as a young child, and this is where I started having trouble in Sunday school is because I asked, like, you get the process of evolution, right? That happens over thousands of years. And then you get the concept God created the world in 7 days. So is God's timing the same as evolution? Or, is God one day our one day? Or maybe God's one day is 1,000 years?
Yeah.
Like, how was that written? What is the explanation behind that? Because maybe the creation theory and the evolution theory is the same theory. And I was shot down very quickly at age 8 at this point of like, no, that's wrong. It's just creation theory. It was one day, 24 hours.
It's quite a question to ask as a young kid.
No, you understand how shocked people were with me from growing up like that, in the sense having these questions. And adults, I think, maybe felt intimidated or unsure or insecure. I don't know at that point. And I can't go back in time and ask them, unfortunately. But these were the type of situations I found myself in quite regularly growing up. And I think that led me to having to find things out myself. And when you're in that position, you end up digging in all kinds of corners in the world to find answers. Like, you really go into the rabbit hole.
I can relate. I mean, as someone that suffered from addiction, I know it's completely different. But growing up, people always tell you, stay away from drugs, stay away from substances. And then I think when you first try them, they're not so bad. And you're like, this is not as bad as people said it was.
Do you understand?
But then you kind of go down the rabbit hole and you get stuck. And then then you realize, okay, they were actually right from the beginning.
I also grew up in the 90s, and the satanic panic was massive in the 90s, and we had people coming to the school and saying, like, this is satanic and you mustn't get involved in this. And I mean, it was things like, you're not allowed to dress up in costumes, and you're not allowed to play with these stickers, and you're not allowed to wear the peace sign, and because this is all satanic things. Looking back, I'm like, I can understand some of it. Some of it, I think, was a bit blown out of proportion, but there was reason for that, because that leads, it's a gateway at the end of the day, or doorway that leads to other things. But so, I mean, at 16, I would walk into a bookshop and I would go look at, like, what is this stuff about esoteric world, and about numbers meaning things, and birthdays, and like the other world and the other side, and spirits and ghosts. And, you could go to a bookshop today and you can go buy books on that. And you start reading those type of things, and then you get onto the internet, and then things get, you go down that rabbit hole. But I think not having adults around me as a child who were able to either get the resources to answer questions, or to actually answer, or to say, I don't know, but let's go figure this out. And just plain shooting me down led me to go find the answers myself. And I didn't necessarily get those answers in the right place.
I think that's the problem, is people don't take kids seriously.
Exactly, 100%. People don't. And it's slowly changing as I'm seeing it now, having my own child. But people still, I think, look down on children, and they don't listen to them, and they don't believe them when they say, I want to know about this, or this happened. Like, people don't believe them. And that is still a problem we struggle with today. And those are the type of things that leads to children growing up, going and testing the waters and seeing, is this thing that you said I shouldn't touch really that bad? And initially it's not. It really isn't. And then it gets bad. And then sometimes you're too young to know how to handle it, or you don't actually know how to get out of it. That was my instance, the latter. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I met Riaan, and we had lots of in-depth discussions trying to also figure these things out for ourselves, and reading all kinds of different books at that stage, like past life regressions and the Akashic records, and trance meditation, and trance mediumship, and all kinds of different things. And then I came across the Satanic Bible in a bookshop one day, and I thought, is it really that bad? I'm going to go find out. And I started reading it, and I thought, this isn't so bad. This philosophy written in here sounds like really good principles to actually apply to yourself, in the sense of, like loving yourself and standing up for yourself and being proud of yourself. And it was very wishy-washy looking back at it, but some of that resonated. And I said to Riaan the other day, I think the reason the Satanic Bible resonates with certain people is because you have that wound of rejection. You have to carry that wound of rejection in order to resonate with that book. Anyway, so I read the book and didn't do anything about it. Was definitely not practicing rituals at this stage. Just I knew about it. And then it was quite a couple of years that went by, and then Riaan said to me, have you read this book? And I was like, about this book? And he was like, yes, I've been reading it. And we both realized that we're both resonated with this book, and this was quite interesting. At
So
this
just
stage-
by chance, both of you found the Satanic Bible and just
Yes.
started digging into
well,
it.
Josh, it's actually not that hard to find. That's
No,
the
I
scary
know, but it's
part.
just the odds of
But
it, like,
yes,
you two.
and we were
yeah.
really friends, but we never. I didn't feel, because now you know in the back of your head this is maybe something that could create rejection. You don't know how people are going to respond because, let's face it, it's Satanism. So we never spoke about it. And when he brought it up, I was like, oh, okay. So you know about this. And I said to him, like, yeah, I mean, I think this, in a way, it's not at all what they made it out to be during the Satanic Panic era. And I think it's like, obviously, you know, it's very different to what I thought it was and everything. So, yeah, it's quite interesting. And he was like, yeah, I actually was quite shocked by it as well. And it is quite interesting. And then we had a group of people that sort of also people just who came forward through being a psychic medium and doing live readings and things, saying like they also want to learn more about like the spirit realm and being a psychic and a medium and all of these other things. And eventually we had like a little group and we had discussions weekly about like now it turned into witchcraft, like witchcraft topics and, you know, more into that avenue. And we were saying the other day, like looking back, it's like that was a full-on coven. Like we had a full-on witches coven. We just didn't.
And can you explain a coven as well?
A coven is like a group of people come together who practice witchcraft,
Okay.
and then they would practice rituals or ceremonies together, in a sense, for certain intentions. So that was that. And at that stage, we were still dabbling. Like nothing was really serious. Things got serious when we started realizing that there were people in this group who were starting to want to do rituals against each other. Like,
Can you give us like an example?
so, for instance, it's like this one lady thought that she perceived me as being better than her at the witchcraft things. And she wanted like my abilities to say. And then she wanted to start doing like rituals where she's tapping into my energy and things like that. And those things exist. I mean, it happens. And that's where I really realized this is real, because I started feeling really sick and really depressed and not having much energy. And I didn't know why.
And you think it's because of her rituals?
So what happened then, she at that point didn't realize the impact of what she's done either. But at one of our meetings, she said, oh, you know, I did this ritual because I thought maybe I could borrow some of your energy because I wanted to do this ritual to get a man. That's what it came down to. She wanted a man. So it came down to that. And in the same time, I started to also get really drained and feeling depressed in that sense. And I realized, like, there's a correlation here. What is the chances that this is real? What is the chances that this can go that deep? And at that stage, I thought that was dark, like that this could happen. And Riaan and I spoke about it, and shortly after that, we withdrew completely from this because we realized this is actual stuff that's really happening, and stuff is this can get really bad at that point. But we carried on just doing our thing. We had a practice together at one stage, and people in general, when you are a little bit different, besides just being a psychic or working with the spiritual world in that sense, people don't like different necessarily, you know? They get scared of it. And so oftentimes we had people coming to our offices saying like, you witches or you Satanists and you
So they would
this.
just drop by and say that?
Yeah, people were pitching up at the office like a lot, doing stuff like that. People pitch up at my house at one stage doing that.
Were these people from like different churches maybe? That
Some of them were. There was one lady from a Christian church who literally pitched up at my house one day, knocked on my door and said, like, you are possessed by the devils and the demons, and you need to find the light, and you are terrible and a satanic person and you shouldn't be here. And like off the bat, you're not going to be very welcoming to that person.
Yeah.
You know, and I just said to you, you know what, I think you are misunderstanding this whole thing, and you need to leave.
So you're basically saying like, listen, you don't understand what Satanism really is.
At that stage, it wasn't even Satanism, Josh. At this stage, this was just psychic readings and playing with crystals.
Okay.
This wasn't even Satanism yet, okay? But the label was placed on us.
Yeah.
Not just me, but him as well.
And why was it placed on you?
I think because the moment you do anything that is in the spiritual realm or claim to do anything in the spiritual realm and it's not Christian, there are
demonic.
certain types of Christians who's immediately going to just label it as demonic. And in a sense, that is true. But there's different ways to handle it. You don't go out to someone and immediately just label them as demonic. Like, that's not helping them. That's pushing them further away from, let's say, Christianity. It's pushing them more into the hands of the devil. It's pushing them more into that avenue. And that's my first-hand experience. People coming up to me and saying, you're a Satanist, or you're demonic, you're possessed by demons, or you're practicing black magic. That wasn't saying to me, oh, maybe I should follow you or look at what you're into. That went like, no, you stay there, leave me alone. I don't want anything to do with you right now. I'm going to do my thing because you are now attacking me. And in a sense, also, again, rejection, So... yeah, we had a practice together. People were already putting this label on us. And I think one day we just got so sick of it. And we already at this point met other Satanists. There was already like rituals being done. Nothing very hectic. I don't know if you disagree with me on that, but...
what would you... I mean, are you able to speak about that or...
Not really.
Okay.
Not really. But at this stage...
So I know people were very interested to hear more about the
So what
rituals.
We're talking about, I think this is 2017 by now, where we are.
2018, 17, 18, yeah.
Yeah. So because of that group or small group of people that we kind of pulled away from, I was starting to look at, is there maybe other groups of people practicing these things? And because I've read the Satanic Bible by then, which was given to me by a Satanist who came to that very practice where we were, I started going to the rituals that they invited me to. So... yeah, I went to Adri at one stage during that time, and I said to her, you know what, like, I've met other Satanists now, and they are quite serious, and they're very different in the sense of the people that we got mixed up in the occult. So the occult and Satanism, it's not exactly the same thing. There's certain overlaps, but... I say to her that these people are like serious and they're very successful and they're very good in what they do in business. They're not people that's going to leech off us. That I think that was kind of the...
yeah, because
So you're saying like the first group, you weren't so comfortable with this new group of people. You could see like they were serious about it. They had a vision for where to go.
They had experience.
Yes, they had a lot of experience and they were... also very keen, because we started talking about it at that time, to do something that's a bit more structured for Satanism. So those were just talks at that stage. But then I went to Adri and I said, well, I know you've read the Satanic Bible because we've spoken about it. I've met these people. Would you like to maybe just come and meet them as well? So at that stage, I've been probably to 2 or 3 rituals. So it wasn't major experience. I was still quite green with the satanic aspect. But I have gone to 2 or 3 rituals at that time. I think the main thing that resonated with me then was that these people are not going to look to us or try to drain us or for us to give them necessarily... yeah, it was like in comparison with the other group where it was almost like people were constantly wanting something or to show us how to be, for us to show them how to be psychic and things like that. Where this was a group of people, they were very established, they were very successful in their businesses and they've applied Satanism in their lives and they had a lot of knowledge about Satanism and they started having, like conversations about maybe it's time to legitimize Satanism and make it like above board, like a religion, and bring it out more public. None of them really wanted to put their faces to it.
I know, that's why you guys became the faces. Yeah.
So then I went to Adri and I said to her, I've met these people, I've been to 3 meetings, and I've been to 2 or 3 social things. Would you like to meet them as well? And then we can talk about this, and maybe this is the next step.
And were you guys the least practiced or experienced in this group
at that time?
Yes.
And why would they look to you guys then to lead them? I know you obviously said they didn't want to be the faces, but surely they would go, you guys are like, you've only been to 2 rituals, you're very inexperienced.
Yes.
Why
So-
did they choose you guys?
So I think
You're smiling. Something. I hit something there.
yeah, I think you have your opinions. My opinion is that they wanted people who were probably brave and stupid at the same time. So people who would be willing to do that and won't be ashamed. Because I was already quite bold at that time in terms of my beliefs and speaking about things, etc. Plus, I think because of the two of the other co-founders or people who eventually became the church council, they were quite impressed with my abilities as, occultist. And because I did some spells and witchcraft for one of their partners, I also did readings for quite a few of them at that time. So I think they saw that there's an ability here. And I think that could maybe also be why specifically they wanted us to do it. What is your opinion?
No, I think at that stage, we both already had YouTube channels running as well. And we were already making videos of the occult. I was doing monthly readings on there. We had lots of conversation type videos. We already had content as well. And we were already comfortable in front of a camera. We were already comfortable speaking about these things. We weren't scared and we weren't hiding any of it,
Yeah.
So I think in that sense, like, yes, we were brave, but also we didn't know the extent of how far these things go. So I think I got into it quite naively and incredibly gullible, at the same time. And when he came forward and he said to me, like, there's this group of people and everything, and we met, and I was like, well, this doesn't seem like such a big deal. It didn't seem like a big deal. This was going to be something pretty chilled, actually. And it's like, we are going to see if we can get this registered. Like, that was the thing that they were like, okay, you've got experience with like registering stuff. Because I've had a registered PTY at the time. So it's like, this is a religious organization, you need to register. Like, let's see if you can do that. And let's take it from there. And if we can get it registered, like, we'll move forward. And I thought, like, well, let's see. Let's see.
Yeah, and I also think what's maybe important to mention here is that they said from the beginning that we will tell you what to say.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Okay. So you were just the faces.
It was,
Yes, and they said that we will give you scripts for things. We will give you the structure. We will tell you how to put it out there. We will, and that's pretty much what happened for a 2-year period.
Yeah, I think it just seemed initially, my initial perception of this was also like, it doesn't seem like that much work, firstly, and it doesn't seem like a big deal because I'm already talking about stuff like this. So now you're
just doing it more organized, yeah.
More
And
organized
were you
way.
getting paid to do this?
Yes, there was some money.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's, like
it was a job.
Yeah, it's like a job.
It was a job.
Yeah.
Yes.
And did you see it more as a job or something that you really wanted to do because you were passionate about it?
Initially, definitely there was passion. There was passion that came from anger. Angry of being labeled something. Angry of being told, having that Satanist label put on you from a young age. And not knowing even at a young age what that was, but now knowing what it is. And I said, and I'll never forget this, I said to Riaan the one day, I said, let's just own it then. Let's own it and be honest about it. People are already calling us this. Let's just own it and be honest about it. Because I'm tired of continuously having to say, no, that's not what I am. So let me be that.
Yeah.
Let me be that now. Let's go with this. Let's do this journey. Let's move forwards and let's see what happens at that point. And then when that was before the meeting, then I had the meeting. Then it was like, okay, this doesn't seem like that big of a deal. I just have to speak. I'm already doing that. I have to talk about these things. And yeah. What we didn't expect, obviously, is for it to get registered so quickly. Like, it was literally a 24-hour period between having the paper signed and me getting the email saying you're registered. And then it was a non-profit, it was like an NPC, non-profit company. Then we still had to do the process of getting registered with the Department of Social Development. So that happened about 6 months later. We were registered with the Department of Social Development. But at that stage, the church was actually already live in that process for the Department of Social Development. But yeah, we started, it was January 2020, it got registered. February, we did our first email interview and we did a radio interview shortly after that, and it just blew up.
I remember seeing it blow up because people kept tagging me saying, I need to get you guys on the podcast.
It was the most intense experience.
I'm sure.
And unexpected, completely and utterly unexpected. Firstly, I think I was of the perception that the media wasn't going to be interested in this because it's Satanism, you know. But people loved the story, I guess, or they were scared and they wanted to know more. I still have questions about what the main drive behind all of that was and why it became such a big thing so quickly. Maybe fear, you know, people got scared. Then lockdown happened, and what happened there is there was obviously buildings set up for this, and there was a church office and all of that type of things. But lockdown opened the door for things to grow much faster because now everything's online.
Yeah.
You know, now people are communicating. Now it's thousands of Satanists that also suddenly contacting the church email address and the phone line with the WhatsApps. And suddenly people are coming from all corners of the world at this point, coming forwards and saying like, we're also Satanists. We've also been practicing this. And then you realize how big this actually is.
Yeah.
And then you realize like, okay. And there were people phoning at one stage, one evening after a radio interview. Now that we're in the big media era, basically, like it is going crazy. He's doing an interview on a phone. I'm busy here on a phone. There's a live happening here. There's constantly this journalists and photographers in the office taking pictures. Like it is just back to back nuts. And the one evening after a radio interview, the church phone's ringing. It's like 10 o'clock at night now. He answers this and this guy's like, I've been a Satanist for 20 years and you are talking nonsense. There is some real stuff happening and stop like sugarcoating everything. And I was like, are you pranking me?
That was, I like the way you relay that because it was much more graphic.
It was, yes.
Because I remember
was.
Riaan saying that like a lot of the stuff that you guys said and were told to say was to soften
Yes.
the appearance of Satanism.
Yes, sugarcoat.
Yeah, and to make it seem like, oh, it's not such a big deal. Kind of how you guys got sucked into it because you thought, oh, it's not such a big deal. People have been saying, oh, if you go in, you're done straight away. The demons are going to come for you. What you're going to go to hell. And then you get in and it's just like, you read the tenants or the tenants, it's called the tenants, say. And from what
about the statements in the Satanic Bible?
yeah,
Yes.
like the statements and stuff.
Yes.
And I remember a lot of them were pretty like relaxed,
Yeah.
and they didn't seem.
That's how they get you.
Yeah, you don't. When you first look at it on first glance, you wouldn't go, "Oh, this is terrible."
and if I may add, this is something that when I'm working with people at the moment, especially parents, where their children's involved, etc. What we need to understand is that those statements are written in that way specifically to appeal to a certain type of person. So if you read those statements, imagine yourself being rejected, broken, hurt by religion, and this gives you this thing, oh, but this is what Satanism represents and what you're going to get through it.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell you, though, that when you get involved in Satanism, eventually it becomes very real. Then it's not just Satan represents. Then it becomes actual demonic activities at ritual, actual pacts with the devil, having to do certain things to climb the hierarchy within Satanism. So it doesn't say that. And that's why so many people are pulled into it. And again, like Adri said earlier, we didn't actually realize, especially in South Africa, how many Satanists there were until people started contacting us and wanting to join, you know, because I think the original vision for that organization was also to connect people, you know, with each other, because so many people were practicing in covens around South Africa, and I know around the world. I never met many people around, you know, from abroad, but so many people were already practicing this for years, not knowing there's actually another coven in the same
That there's other
city.
groups, yeah.
Yeah, so I think part of it was to actually connect people
And
as well.
conglomerate it almost.
To make it a network.
Yes.
And I think you said there was 12,000 members roughly, hey?
Online members, like in terms of like on paper.
Yeah.
There's way more.
Yeah, no,
There's a lot
definitely.
more.
Yeah, we just stopped at one stage for different reasons, you know, taking new people on. But that was where it was capped, where it became this. I think that was in the time where things became a bit, you know, I don't know how.
Real.
Yeah. And Yeah, there was a lot of politics at that stage. This was just before I left, but we kind of decided, without even actually telling each other at that time, that we're just not going to
Take members anymore.
take members in, but also we're not going to, I'm looking for a recruit.
Yeah.
We're going to stop with the recruitment of it.
And did you guys, so like when someone becomes a member, right? They sign up, and I'm not sure if we've spoken about this, but is there a fee they have to pay? There's no fee.
No, there wasn't at that time.
So how does the church, because I know with like Christianity and, for example, like Judaism, I know with Judaism, a lot of people give money to the shul,
Yes.
to keep it going. People in church give tithe,
Yes.
right? So what is there in Satanism?
So
How did you guys keep it running?
Okay,
Yeah.
so there's two things. So there's Satanism, and then there was the organization, and obviously they were part of each other. But in Satanism in general, if you want to put it that way, so every coven has a high priest or high priestess, and then every coven belongs to a bigger, if you want to call it a grotto, that's actually the right term. So let's say in an area, so let's just take the northern suburbs of Cape Town. So the northern suburbs of Cape Town, for instance, has 17 covens, but they have a grotto. So a grotto is, if you want to see it as the umbrella for the groups of covens, and twice a year at the high days, the grotto will meet, like the whole group. The covens will still meet once a month. So the high priest can put charges and fines and fees on members. So if a high priest tells you, I need 30,000 Rand this month to pay rent or to whatever, it is the responsibility of the members in that coven to actually make sure, and then from there it goes up to the grotto high priest. So that's how the money structure works. It's like a pyramid almost.
I saw it always as like donations that's made.
Yes.
It's people are donating.
Yeah.
Yes. And then we, at that time, also implemented kind of a similar structure where there was no membership fees, but people could donate if they felt like it. But obviously people were also emotionally blackmailed. And that's how they did it. And then there was two people that was in the group of original co-founders that funded a lot of it. Because they were that passionate about it.
Yeah, they were just that passionate in the sense of like wanting to grow it and for it to be bigger and for it to be recognized that this is here and this is legitimate, in that sense. And they were willing to just like put a lot of finance into it to make it happen.
And were you guys making a lot of money through this, or?
Well, today I can say that was a lot of money that I got when I was involved. I saw the other day there was a post made, sorry, it's actually hilarious, but there was a post made by someone, and they said that one of the reasons I left Satanism was for the money, because I'm going to make more money in Christianity.
I saw a lot of that, yeah.
And I was like, okay, so there's absolutely, like, you can't even compare it. If it was about money, I would have stayed in Satanism, definitely. I would have carried on doing readings and things like that. Because just from my, if you want to call it my psychic business or my practice, I made 80K more or less a month. And that was matched as well by the Satanic Church to keep me.
So you were doing really well.
I was do you understand? Just to give you an indication.
Yeah.
So,
because I did see a lot of people saying that one of the reasons you left Satanism was because they think that you ran out of people to fleece. they were saying so, like, you ran out of people to take money from, so you went to Christianity. And I saw a lot of that in the comments.
Yeah, sure. So
I think what people didn't see behind the scenes is like, yes, he might have done well financially, money-wise that way, but when he left, not only did he lose his full salary, he lost his house, he lost his car, he had to give everything up basically, because everything was given to him by the church in that sense. So when he left, he walked out and he had nothing. And I don't think that is a decision that is lightly made in that sense.
Well, it's another control element as well, to control.
I think at the time when he made it, it was almost a no-brainer. But up until that time,
yes, because the thing is, and I've spoken about my encounter many times, so we're not gonna, but because I had the encounter I did, there was like no choice for me.
With Jesus,
to follow Christ. There was just like, because of what I found through that experience. So the thing about money never became, like a issue, or I didn't consider how this would even impact my life financially, because it wasn't about money at all. And I can definitely tell you today, if it was about money, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now, because I am literally living off people donating as they feel. Like even the services I offer today, the ministry I'm involved in, there's no fixed fee. People give as they can and when they can, because I don't want money to limit people from actually getting help. So I think if it was just about money, I would have probably just stayed and winged it and faked it, because that was also an option that was an option that they presented to me at the time. It's
But
like,
that even though you don't believe in it anymore, you can just
stay as the face, and we still will give you money, and you just don't have to come to rituals anymore if you don't want to, but don't make a scene and don't announce that you're actually leaving Satanism, and we will still do that. So like I said, if it was really about money, I would have obviously done that.
And so you became involved, you guys become the leaders or the faces, right, of the Satanic Church in South Africa, and things seem to be going well at the beginning. When did, for you, things start to turn? When did you go, this isn't what I thought it was?
I'm going to let you answer that.
Yes, no, of course. So I think initially when that phone call came through, and this guy was confirming to us with all this stuff that was happening, that I thought, in a way, I was like, you are pranking me. I don't...
What was this phone call?
It was after a radio interview we did, and someone phoned us, and he's like, welcome, brother. He said that to Riaan, like, welcome, brother. I've been in Satanism for 20 years. It's so nice to have you here. And I was like, what is this? And he was like, you are painting such a beautiful picture for us to hide behind, because you and I both know everything you just said is lies. And we do all those rituals that you just said is not happening.
Like what?
So I think a lot of
You did mention some of it last time,
Yeah, I think at that stage, I thought literally this guy was joking. But now looking back, I think, from what Riaan's also told me, is that there was people who were really into like animal sacrifice and, drinking blood and like those type of things that unfortunately does happen, And I think, like, I literally just thought he was pranking us at this point. And then later on, Riaan was like, no, this was serious. This was serious. And I was like, no, that can't be. Like, I'm, like, so gullible at this stage. Like, looking back, I'm like, how are you that stupid and that gullible? But, yeah, I think there's a part of denial as well, of realizing, like, maybe this is more than what you thought and there's other things going on here. And I was just deeply also in denial at this point. But that was about, I think it was like May or June of 2020.
Yes.
It was early days. And then we got to, I'll never forget this, it was like October. At this stage, we've had to bring on, the responsibility eventually laid on us to bring on people to help because it was just too much. And suddenly we had to implement this membership structure because people were asking to be members. The membership structure wasn't necessarily going to be that formal that early on. This was going to happen later, But early on, suddenly people are like asking us to be members, consistently hounding us to be members. So we had to create a membership structure, which was at that stage you filled in a form, and then there was like an interview process that we spoke to the people about, and then like all these chapters started around the country, and then people from different areas and chapters would then step forward and say they want to lead the chapters and they want to do this and they want to do graphic design, and people coming up with all kinds of things that they wanted to help, to make this bigger. And so at this stage we had, I think one of the other big chapters was the Gauteng chapter, and that was led by someone there who initially we thought was going to be a really good fit because he had a good education and he knew a lot of things.
Is this the friendly Satanist?
Yes. And, and we thought this was really going to work quite well. And then the chapter that he was running wanted to start like a WhatsApp group. And initially we were like, okay, if you guys want to do that, like we're not going to be running it. Like you are an independent chapter, you need to do that. And then certain conversations about that WhatsApp group came forwards, and I looked at this stuff, and what they were sharing is they were sharing what they said was a thame. So a thame is like a ritual dagger, and in the occult, it is used to direct energy. But in this scenario, the images I saw, I didn't immediately think this was an athame. I thought these were actual weapons, you know. And at the same time of all of that coming out, I had a miscarriage, which I still think today was in a way that God was literally just showing me this is wrong right now, you know. And I just came out of hospital, and there was this, like the next day I had to be in the church office, and we had to have a big meeting about it. And the consensus came that we had to have a video call with the leader of that chapter and explain that you can't do this, you can't post stuff like this and make it that public, you know. And the feedback we got in that time was, in this video call, was just basically like, this is not such a big deal, you know. And I was just like, no, there's something wrong here. This is a big deal. Why do you have these weapons? Why do you have these tools? This is not right, guys. And I think having just had a miscarriage at that time as well, you're obviously more emotional, and you start to look at things very differently as well. And I just realized that something is very wrong here, and not just with the content that was shared, but with their reaction of, this isn't a big deal. And it wasn't just like the leader of the Gauteng chapter, other people in that chapter as well. It was like, this just wasn't a big deal to them. And this is a short period of time now, space of 3 weeks, that a lot of stuff happened for me. So that was like the first thing. And then I realized, like, you know what, I'm just going to step back here a little bit. I need to recover physically, mentally, emotionally, all of that. And I'm just going to take a little bit of time here. Then it was like that. It was the first Halloween since the church was established. And I was running a social media campaign about how Satan is like, don't do the things that people say they do on Halloween. And I was running a campaign of like, share pictures of what you're doing on Halloween. And I was at home literally watching movies. Other people were sharing they were doing movies and watching movies or having a braai or whatever. And also one of those experiences where you look back and you're just like, oh my Lord, like you're like so naive right now. Because there were people doing rituals in graveyards and people doing quite hectic rituals in garages. And I think that's where you did one of your first rituals to climb the ranks.
Yeah, that was my first Black Mass that I went to in that time. So that was the first year where the church was founded. So that was the first massive ritual. I went to a farm. It was just outside Worcester. So there were about 200 people. And that was the Halloween ritual, which, I mean, and again, at that very moment, she was busy reading a script, basically, that was given again of, we should do this campaign about Halloween. Meantime, I'm at a Black Mass, witnessing hectic stuff that probably, you know, it's the things that it leaves a mark on you lifelong. So I actually saw what was going on behind the curtains by being at that ritual. And up to that point, we've been doing these campaigns about this is what Satanism is not this.
Everything
and
is
we
very
believed
vanilla.
it. And we believed it.
Yeah, we were like...
until I went to
not
that
aware.
ritual. So, and I'm not saying I went against my will or that I stopped going to rituals, because I got much deeper into it, because I started climbing the ranks in Satanism because I did those things at that ritual. But I don't think that half the people who came to that Halloween ritual of 2020 knew what they were getting into.
Are you allowed to talk more about it, or?
Yes. What would you like to know?
What kind of rituals were they doing?
So it was mostly animal sacrifices. I didn't witness any human sacrifice in the whole time that I was involved with Satanism, but I knew other people were doing it because I
remember you said last time.
Okay. But yeah, so I like to always just speak from experience because I can't say I've heard, therefore it is.
Some people were also saying, and sorry to interrupt, but they were saying that you as the leader, right, because you were saying that you heard about human sacrifices that were happening, but you said you never saw them or witnessed them, and they said that doesn't make sense because as the leader, how could you not have seen?
But
I'm asking it from there. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
But I was never a high priest or a priest in Satanism, so I wasn't the leader in terms of like I am the leader of the Satanists, and I never claimed to be that. I was the leader of an organization in terms of the face, etc. So there's many satanic rituals happening all the time. I was never at every one of them. I only went to certain ones. But I mean, I wasn't in terms of the hierarchy within Satanism. I wasn't really very high up because I was in Satanism for 3 years at that time. So people who are at the leadership of Satanism, those are people who have been involved 10 years plus before you can even go there. So if someone comes to you and say, I've been a satanic high priest, for instance, but they've only dabbled in Satanism for 2 years, that's not how that structure works. It doesn't work that way. And you have to perform a certain amount of rituals in front of witnesses that sits in a higher position than you to climb that and to get those titles and positions. That's how it actually works. So yes, that was the very first ritual that I went to that I saw. Okay, so everything that we've basically been saying is not true. This stuff is really happening, and all the other co-founders of the Satanic Church was at that ritual. So yeah, and I find it something that I find very interesting that's going on at the moment, if I can talk about that, is that this other person that we spoke about, he was involved with the Satanic Church for 4 months.
Are you talking about the guy that funded it?
No.
Okay.
No.
Oh, the friendly Satanist.
Yeah. So he was involved with the Satanic Church for 4 months at a distance, right? So he was in Gauteng, we were here. So online, there was communication. The other co-founders also monitored him because he was like on a probation period. I actually paid his salary. They didn't want to. I was actually the person who paid out of, because I felt I wanted to. And then there was one weekend where he actually came down to Cape Town. So he met us in person and he met one of the other council members as well. So then they obviously realized that they don't want anything to do with this person because of what's going on in his email account at that time. There were some things that I can't talk about because my lawyer has advised me not to, but it's there. And he used a lot of the Satanic Church's letterheads and stuff.
And also just the things that he was bringing up in conversation. I think.
Yeah, so they basically told us, you need to fire him. Like they didn't want to do it, right? So we had to do that. Then in that 4 months that he was actually, so this is the experience that he had with Satanism. So he had one ritual in his garage or a friend's garage with 8 people wearing masks, and there was a picnic in a cemetery. But today there's this like, I know what went on in the Satanic Church. I am an expert in Satanism. Yeah. How can you be an expert? So he is continuing this thing of whitewashing Satanism and saying that it's some philosophy type of belief system, and it's only about what is written about it. You cannot talk from that point of view and say you are an expert, and I'm not even an expert. I've never claimed to be an expert on Satanism. I just talk from the experience that I've had and from what I've seen.
I think he just doesn't know yet the extent of how deep this goes, and he's not aware of. He hasn't seen the type of things that we've seen.
Of course not.
After our last podcast, the guy, his name is Your Friendly Satanist Online. Okay. He actually spoke out against you.
But it's okay.
Yeah,
this is the thing.
He contacted me saying that a lot of what you said, and I told you this because I was going to have you guys on together, but he said a lot of what you said was just completely false, made up, fabricated, and that's he wanted to come on to show the real side of the story. Okay. And the things that went on behind the scenes. Okay. Because he said he did have a lot of info on you.
But again, and like I've said before, people who have info, please share it, because all you're going to do is you're going to incriminate other people by that. And I'm quite open about what I've done and what I've seen. But I'm very concerned. So this is not coming from a place of like being angry or whatever, because as a person who has come out of it and who has had the experience with Christ and salvation, and I'm seeing people daily wanting to get out of Satanism. Do you understand? So there's still this thing about perplexing a myth that it's not about the devil. It's not demonic. It's all philosophy. It's all a philosophy to live by. But this is someone that's speaking from a point of view of a 4-month experience. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And I've also seen him saying things like, he knows me very well. So how well can you know a person from a 4-month? And I mean, I'm not the same person today that I was then. I'm not the same person I was 2 years ago even. So it's very, very sad. And I was that person as well. I used to go on social media. I used to trash Christians and people who have also come out of Satanism and said they are false as well. Today I'm in ministry with one of those people. But I used to do exactly the same thing. So I used to also, and this was part of the PR for Satanism, is to say that people who say they come out of Satanism and they've seen these things and stuff, it's false, it's not true. That's exactly what we did for quite a while.
So you're saying he's just doing the whitewashing that you guys were doing?
Yes, and it's okay. So I'm not saying he
I'm not saying that he is. I'm just, this is your opinion,
because,
obviously.
Yeah, it's my opinion, but that perspective comes from a very limited point of view, having been involved with something for 4 months and saying that. But I mean, he never met any of the other co-founders. I don't know if he ever met any of the members here. No, he did, some of them.
Yeah.
But not on the major scale. He didn't come to rituals. He was never at a ritual that was hosted by the South African Satanic Church. So, yeah, that's what it is. Again, I know that as I came out of Satanism, he will as well. I know it. And I know that he will have an experience with God as well. I know that. So imagine I go around on social media now and post evidence and stuff that because I can also do that, but I'm a Christian, you see, so I cannot do that, and I don't want to do that, because you have to protect people's reputations, and it's not about exposing people, and this is what I've said in interviews many times as well. It's like, our fight is not against flesh and blood, it's against the things in the spirit, against principalities, against demons, so ultimately, we want those people to be able to turn their hearts to Christ, and to attack them and to say awful things about them, whether you're a Christian that's in ministry or someone that's just following Christ. We are supposed to love these people, and they need love. This is the thing. And I know this because I was there. I did exactly the same things on social media against other Christians that he is doing and people like him is doing. So I completely understand where that comes from. So
I think I'm also in that space where I just have immense amounts of compassion for him, because I think he had a 4-month experience. He found the Satanic Bible after this establishment of the church, then reached out to us. And he has a very limited experience of what it is. And like I said, again, I don't think he knows the extent of what's actually going on, to be honest. Or he does know and he's just whitewashing it. I don't know which one it is. You know, I honestly can't say. But I do have immense amount of compassion for him, because I think he's getting involved in stuff that he's either involved in things that he knows is, I think we all know at some point that this probably,
I
wasn't
pray
right.
that he's not, to be honest.
Yes.
I really hope he's
Yes.
not. Because I've also got to know some of his family members in the last 2 years since I've been out, and they are really lovely people. They're really awesome, and they are also praying for him. And exactly, I think because I've been there and I know the impact it had on my family at the time, where I wasn't speaking to them for 4 years out of my choice. It's not like they wrote me off. They were actually praying for me and my salvation at that time. And a big part of why I had my experience and why I got out was that around the world, because this was such a public thing, thousands of people were praying for my salvation, for me to have a God encounter. So that's why that actually happened. And it's amazing sitting on the other side of this today and looking at that and like, who were you then? Like, if I think of the stuff I was involved with and doing and how I got involved in things deeper and deeper and deeper as time goes on, because you're not of sane mind.
You're not actually.
You are oppressed by demons. So
I relate in such a strong way, funnily enough, because when I look at myself from a few years ago, and it's so similar with addiction, it seems.
Is.
Because I also just went down this path and you just don't even remember who you are anymore.
Yes.
And then coming out of it
don't.
now, looking back, I'm just like,
thank you.
I could never have, it's not even that I disassociate.
Yes.
It's just, that was a completely different person.
And I mean,
Yes.
it's not in my nature, in my true nature, to hurt people and hurt animals. It's not. Yet I did those things when I was oppressed and possessed. So that's why a lot of people do it. If we think of, and this might go a bit off track, sorry, but if we think of humans, if we think of people, right, doesn't matter which religion or race or gender, whatever, if we think of people, it's not in anybody's nature to hurt another person in the way that God created us. It's not. People get hurt. People go through massive experiences in their life, different things, trauma. Eventually, the people who actually do things, they are hurt. They are broken.
That's why they always say, hurt people.
Yes, but it's not in our true nature to do that. There's something else at play when those things happen.
Yeah. And so earlier we were talking about you leaving the church, right?
Yes.
And you said you saw some stuff in the WhatsApp group that put you off. And if I remember correctly, Riaan, last time you mentioned that you were pregnant at the time, or you had just had a miscarriage.
Just had a miscarriage.
And you saw some graphic images of kids.
So, yeah, what happened is, just had the miscarriage and everything. I was laying low, basically. He had his first major ritual take place at that time, and I noticed a difference in him almost immediately after that. And then I realized at the same time also, like, I didn't know the extent of what was happening at that ritual because I wasn't there, but I saw a deep, deep change in him almost instantly. And then I realized, I think after having that miscarriage, I was like, I really want a child. And this is not the right environment for that, So now already there's this thing in my mind of like, I need to find a way out of here, but I don't know how to do that. And then, some people also from Joburg were down here and they needed a place to stay because their flight got delayed or something. And I offered for them to come stay, and they were doing things on their computer, like under the guise of editing, because they were also shooting videos and things of editing. And I came across a couple of things on the computer, just like walking past, seeing these things. And I was just like, nope, don't want to see that. That should not be on your computer. Why is that on your computer? And I remember at one stage also with a few people in Gauteng, there was a thing of... there was an argument regarding age, like a legal age and then like an acceptable age. Because let's face it, the legal age for a girl to give consent is young in South Africa. I'm speaking under correction, but I think it's like 12 or 14.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, we can fact check that, but it's very young. And these were young girls, and the argument was like, oh, but they can give consent. And in my heart at that point, I was like, no.
I think
just because you can say give consent doesn't mean it's right.
If I'm not mistaken, I think if you give it's if the other person is under 16 as well.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken,
I'm sure there's a lot of legalities around
for consent.
it.
If you're underage,
Yes.
the other person has to be underage as well.
Yes, I know legalities. There's a lot of things surrounding it. In that moment, that didn't matter to
No,
me.
it shouldn't.
I was just like, this is not right. These are people who are in their 20s, and these are girls who are well under 18. So this is not right, guys. Like, no. So they got out of my house quickly, and then I said, conversations were had about this as when arguments started surrounding
So
this.
also remember at that time, up to that point, the age that somebody needed to be to join the South African Satanic Church was 21. They wanted then to push it to 16.
Yes.
Okay.
Suddenly.
Why?
To include,
Young girls.
Yes.
especially in the Gauteng setup.
Yes.
Because I know that one of the tenets is like be
Protect
free. Oh, besides for that, but it's be free, have sex, and
Yeah, indulgence.
indulge. So they were obviously trying to recruit young girls to come in to be part of these rituals,
The
to
scary thing, Josh,
be in the
is like,
orgies
Correct.
and all that kind of stuff.
there was a lot of people who wanted to join Satanism just for that aspect.
I'm sure.
Loads.
Like a sexual adventurers club kind of thing.
Like people were really into stuff like that, and I'm sure they still are. But for me, at that point, I was like, this is the line here, guys. Like, this is not it. And at that point, remember, I was also still very much, I think, deceived or in denial. I'm still, I was just like in shock, actually. That's what it is. It was like, I'm in shock to realize that these things that I thought it was and the stuff that's now actually coming out is so vastly different in that point. And this is not what I want for my life. This is not what I want for my life. And that's, like I said, it was a very short period of time with a lot of stuff coming out all of a sudden.
Were you allowed to get into what was coming out?
Well, it was this stuff.
Besides for what we've obviously already,
Yeah, that was a majority of the things as well. At that stage, there was stuff coming out that he was aware of that I wasn't even aware of yet. And that we figured out a little bit later on.
Okay.
Because at that same time also, he said to me at one stage, like, if I'm not telling you things, it's not because I'm hiding stuff from you. I want to protect you.
Okay.
And I was like, that's weird to say. Why are you saying that? And
so all of these
kind
things
like,
started coming out and you're like, I need to get out of here.
yes, I need to get out of here. Now, I don't know how, right? I can't speak to him. He is climbing the ranks here at the moment.
Were you kind of scared of him?
Not scared of him. No, I was never scared of him.
So
I just...
imagine being around a person that's on a coke bender for 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, I was that, yeah. But sorry, I keep interrupting.
I
Carry
think
on.
I wasn't scared. I just didn't feel comfortable talking about that.
Yeah.
It's not something I wanted.
was obviously not the person that you knew, and behaving like the person.
Yeah, you were a completely different person at that stage. And
So you really didn't have anyone to turn to?
yeah, there really wasn't. And I thought, I'm just gonna lay low. And I also then again found out I was pregnant, and it happened quickly after the miscarriage. And I think it's because that was again God putting something into my life to steer me away, And I just knew I wanted to make the right decisions here, and I wanted to do everything right. I don't want to do it this way. And I got really sick. You can probably call it morning sickness, but it was all day sickness. It was and it was up until 20 weeks pregnant, which is an extensive period of time. But during that time, there was a lot of stuff that happened and people visiting his house and rituals that was happening that I couldn't attend because I was really, really sick at this point. And I was hospitalized at one stage as well for dehydration and all of that. But I think that was just God's way also in protecting me from a lot of stuff that I found out about afterwards that was happening. And I felt with not actually even being in the office that often or even speaking to him that often or being aware of other stuff that was going on, I started slowly but surely being very removed from Satanism.
Okay.
Like I wasn't leaving, but because I was scared and I had no one to talk to and I didn't know how I was going to manage this and keep myself and my future family safe and my unborn child safe. And there was a lot of things going through my head all at the same time. And saying it like this, it seems very, but it was a really intense time. It was a very stressful time. And I started having to figure out how am I going to find my gap to get out of here safely? And I don't know how that's going to happen. But at that point, I just thought, I will figure this out. I'm going to figure this out. And I started just withdrawing. Besides just not being able to actually physically take part in anything or be present for anything, I just also didn't want to. I started really withdrawing. I stopped replying to membership applications. I stopped taking on memberships. I just stopped. I was done. And at that stage, I also stopped getting paid because I wasn't actively involved, So it was fine. It didn't make a difference to me. And then after I had my son in that whole experience, I knew I'm going to find a proper out, an official out, like no one was bothering me either. This was the interesting part.
They were leaving you alone.
I know. And like looking at how everyone wanted to speak to me the whole time and going to people suddenly just not having interest in speaking to me or bothering me or inviting me to anything or, not even messages or anything. It is actually such a blessing. It was such a blessing and such a remarkable way for me to again look back and say like, that was God. Like he protected me in that time. He guided me every step of the way. I couldn't see it at that time and I didn't know it at the time. And I definitely wasn't leaving Satanism for Christianity. Like that was not it. But looking back from where I'm standing now, I can see like that was God holding my hand every step of the way. Like he never deserted me in that experience. So eventually I chose to stay at home, raise my child, play it cool, basically a hermit lifestyle, keeping safe. That was the biggest thing for me, is to stay safe, because I know how these people can get and I know their capabilities and I needed to stay safe. So I literally stayed home. And I got a phone call. This is not like a year later. I got a phone call and someone said to me like, did you see Riaan's video? And I was like, what video? And they were like, must watch this, here's a link. And suddenly this is him talking about meeting Jesus and having had this experience. And then in that year time that I was like playing it safe at home, like we didn't really speak every day. We didn't speak much about anything. Like we'll see each other in passing here and now, but like there wasn't really that, there wasn't anything major.
You weren't very
on.
close at that point.
No, not at all. And seeing that video, I mean, I looked at it, was like, oh, wow, that's nice for you. But now the focus is on you. So I'm getting out. Like I'm taking the gap. And I contacted him and I said to him, wow, like that was amazing. Like I'm actually so happy for you, because I could also see a change in that video. I could see you look different.
And that surprised me, because I didn't know how she would react, because in my mind she was still involved in the Satanic Church.
It's so bizarre, isn't it?
It was.
Like the way that you guys came into it together and then
The way we left.
kind of leaving it together. It's bizarre, because the fact that you guys were both the leaders, right? The faces. And you kind of both had the similar experiences in and out. It's very strange.
I think...
Well, not a similar experience, but it's like a similar timeline in a way.
Because I already resigned a month before I made that video.
Okay, I remember you.
So he was already out by the time I saw the video, and I didn't even know.
Yeah.
So I couldn't, because I wasn't allowed to talk to anybody in the organization. I had to sign a document to say this is the one condition, and the other condition was to keep it quiet for a whole month, so that they could put certain things in place. So,
and I still think it's odd also that none of those council members even contacted me in that month time to tell me what was going on.
To be honest, I
like
actually thought you were. Yeah, I thought you were in contact. I mean, I know now, and we had this conversation like a few months ago that you weren't, but I actually believed, and that's why I couldn't tell her, because I thought like, how does she feel about this? And I've also seen at that time what they do with people trying to get out of the organization. So I obviously didn't want to talk to anybody in the organization and constantly having to look over my shoulder of what's happening, what's going to happen. So
I think...
what was that like when you both realized that you wanted out, or that you were out, and what was that like?
So remember, I didn't know she wanted out at that time.
No, but I'm saying once you had watched the video, I'm sure you contacted him.
Yes, so I did.
Yes.
And I said, wow, what an experience. Actually, you're looking so much better. This is bizarre. And I think I said to you in the sense of like, I'm going to take the gap. And you were like, what do you mean? And I said, well, do you know, I haven't spoken to anyone in over a year in the organization. He was like, what do you mean? He was like, you know, and in a sense, in that moment, it was also for me, just again, like that realization, like, I actually didn't mean anything to them. You know, the fact that they didn't even speak to me for like a year while there was things he was leaving and like, I don't know what else was going on.
You were really
but, like,
just the
I was
face.
really not, I didn't matter clearly at this point, but at the same time, still scared of what might happen if I did leave and speak out of anything, you know? So, yeah, I just said to him, you know what, I think I am also just going to take that gap because the focus is on you. I'm going to do this. And he just said to me, just make sure you are safe.
Yes. Plus, at that stage, I was just happy to hear that more people are getting out of Satanism, whether it is because they've also found Christ or not. But that I'm still happy every day when I get those messages and calls, because people are leaving Satanism at the moment on quite a big scale. And it's not because of me.
I'm sure a huge amount of it's because of you guys in South Africa.
See, this is the thing also. It's like, I think when people are saved and redeemed and freed, it's not a person, it's God. So I cannot take credit for anybody's salvation or even in the deliverance practice, because it's God and Jesus who does that. No person, no human being can actually take the credit for that and say that I've convicted another person, or converted another person or whatever. That's what God does, and he does it through the Holy Spirit. But I was just so happy when she told me, and I warned her. I said to her, they're probably still going to tell you not to speak to me. Do they know we are in contact at the moment? So I think you were still involved until September.
Yeah, so yes, what happened is his thing came out. I said to him, like, I'm going to take this cap and everything, because now I've also read the comments on his video. And when this person phoned me and told me about this video, she said to me, like, there's major uproar in the satanic community about this now as well. And I thought, like, what did Riaan do? And I watched the video and I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I realized, like, they are having this major hissy fit, if you want to call it that, because he found love in a different way. He found love through Christ and not through the devil. And now they're upset about that. And he is moving forwards and loving himself through Christ. And he's standing up for himself through Christ. And they're having a meltdown about this because it's not their way. Like, that goes against the essence of what you guys said that you were standing for, is like a self-love and self-empowerment and all of those beautiful things. And this is literally what he's doing. He's just doing it through Christ. So why does that bother you so much? But anyway, so I was immediately called in for a meeting shortly after that video as well. And like you said, it's like literally like a book they played out. And they were like, are you still in contact with them? I'm like, yes, I was in contact with them long before this organization, and I'll probably be in contact with them long after this. So, you know, I am in contact. And like, no, you can't, conflict of interest, and you don't know what he's going to say. And, you know, there was like a whole bunch of stuff about like, he's just going to like spin this out of control now, and we need to keep an eye on him and all this stuff. And I was like, no, okay, this is weird. There's just more stuff obviously now coming out, just reaffirming to me that this is obviously the right choice to leave. And I phoned up one of the council members and I just said to her, like, you know what, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore.
And you're out.
I'm out. And she was like, oh, well, good luck to you. So then I was like, then the focus was literally just on, again, now we need to just like watch ourselves and be super safe here with everything.
You were kind of lucky in a way, because you really did get the best distraction you could have asked for.
But, you know, and like, and looking back again, for
in
me,
Riaan,
it was like I perhaps didn't see the opportunity to leave before all of that, but God intervened in such a powerful way that it created such a stir with him that I had the opportunity to get out. Because if it wasn't for that, I'm sure there would have been another opportunity, but that was such a big moment. And it again just showed me again how Satanists are. Like, they don't actually want you to love yourself and to be self-empowered. That is not what this is about. It has to be about their way and doing it their way. So if you find love and self-empowerment through Christ, then that is now terror. That's wrong, you know, and we're going to fight you on that. And that's what I saw happen. I mean, immediately I think my eyes just opened again and was reaffirmed again that it's time.
So once you were officially out, right? What happened then?
So I went to Mauritius.
I remember seeing you guys on holiday, actually.
No, that was actually...
There was another trip.
Yeah, you didn't come
Okay.
with on that one. But I was like, I'm getting out. So I went to Mauritius, and it was also just a time to just actually to decompress from everything, in a sense, and just was a first family trip together and everything. And it was really just to relax. And I think in a way also I just wanted that space physically from everything that was happening in South Africa. Because at the stage there was a lot of focus on Riaan. There was a lot of stuff going on. People were saying a lot of horrible stuff from both sides, Satanists and Christians at that point. Like there were people saying like he didn't really meet Jesus and he didn't really find Jesus and this is all just nonsense. And I think because I saw the change in him, I knew there was something very significant that happened with him. And there was just too much people like just attacking each other.
Too many opinions.
Yeah, from both sides. I needed space. I needed to think because now I've left and I definitely didn't leave for Christianity at that point, but I also needed to figure out with myself, like, where am I now? What do I believe now? Who am I now? And so went on holiday, and in that holiday, I was asking a lot of questions. And in a point also, I was trying to figure out if this Jesus thing was real, because I'm still curious. I'm still a curious mind. I still have questions. That didn't change. And in a way, I was also like, God, where are you? Like, how does he get a meeting and I don't? And like, where were you? And all this time I wanted to leave. Like, why didn't you help me out? You know, there was some of that as well happening. But in that time, I had an amazing experience on that island, and where I had a glimpse of God, in a sense of realizing that God never left me. He was always there with me. And I started to make those associations between all the things that happened. And in that period of time when my eyes did open and I realized like there was a lot of stuff going on that I wasn't aware of and that I need to get out, and the way the door eventually was opened for me to get out. And I just realized that I was just very, very wrong. There was deception in a sense as well, but within myself as well, I think I just realized I was wrong. And I came home really humbled by that experience, because it was just I still struggle to find words for it, but it was really, I was on the beach and I was looking at the sunset and my family was there. And in that moment, I just realized there's so much more to life than all of this stuff. So much more. And like God was actually there in little bits, in a gentle way. He had a really big experience. I didn't. I had a gentle experience with God at that point. But I came home and it wasn't like I'm now a Christian, I was wrong. There's a lot more going on. And I didn't speak to anyone from the church after that. I mean, if I wasn't speaking to anyone before the time of leaving in that period. And then afterwards, it was also just like, it didn't really matter to anyone except me, obviously. And then I just went, I didn't say anything about it. I didn't announce my departure. I didn't do any of that. And near the end of that year, I thought maybe I should say something and see what comes out. So I did a post on Facebook saying like, I've had this experience and I was wrong, and there's definitely that God has been with me in that sense. And I know the church is going, and I believe they're underground now, because even in that time when he left, and then when they were saying to me that I can't have contact with him or anything, I did pose the question, like, who's going to take over to be the face now? And no one wanted to do that. Like, no one wanted to step forward and take on that responsibility in that sense. So then I knew they were still operating. I knew stuff was still going on, but it wasn't that visual anymore. And I think at that point I also, in a tiny way, wanted to put out there that don't think Satanism's now gone just because he's gone. Because he definitely wasn't the leader of Satanism. He might have been in the church and like the head in the visuals and everything, but he definitely wasn't the leader of Satanism. So I didn't want people to think that that's not still happening, because now I also know the dangers involved with that. So anyway, I just did a little post, and then people started contacting me saying, like, we didn't even know you left. No one even said anything. And we didn't even know this. Like, there wasn't communication. And I said, okay, well, bye. I'm out. And I just blocked a lot of people as well, because I didn't want to go back there. It's like once you've left something, you don't want to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we started speaking a lot at this stage.
It was early 2023, early last year.
Yes. And a lot of conversations and stuff. And I knew he was going through immense deliverance counseling, and there was a lot of stuff happening in that arena. But I didn't feel that was for me. At this stage, I was still, in a sense, maybe angry at Christians in general, because rejection and just also the way that they treated us when we were Satanists. They were some of the ones who were some of the meanest people. They were the ones who were giving us death threats. They were the ones creating immense amounts of, not harm, but they were incredibly judgmental, but in that sense.
I see that a lot, though, right, with Christianity, where people say it's all about forgiveness. You repent, you're forgiven. If someone's a sinner, pray for them. But I see a lot of people attacking.
Yes.
Right?
So if I can weigh in here, there's a difference between religion and following Christ. And a lot of people don't understand that. And I was one of those people as well.
Me too.
Because before I got involved in the occult, now I'm talking about 20 years ago, just over 20 years ago, I was in a Christian church. I knew the Bible exceptionally well. I thought I had a relationship with God. But yet I got immensely hurt in that church. And that's why I left, because of other Christians. So now I didn't actually know God. I thought I did at that time, or because God is represented by people in leadership of Christian churches, etc. So then, since I've had an encounter with Christ and I'm growing my relationship with God every day since that moment, still, I spend at least 3 hours a day, sometimes more, in my relationship with God. So the more I got to know God and what God's heart is for people and what God is capable of, it's like two completely different things. And the sad thing is that unfortunately, Christianity is sometimes represented by people who is extremely religious. So the gospel, that what Christ actually teaches us, is to love, and to literally love everybody the way that God does. But now you have religion, which is, like I said, it's like the Pharisees of today. So it's like the people who crucify Jesus at the end of it. That's what the Pharisees is. And I am seeing very slowly but surely that people are having encounters and meetings with Christ all over the world. Because of, and I've mentioned this before, it's because of the times we are in that this is happening. God is literally pulling up people that so many people would have not even imagined God can use. But God is not limited by our, what can we call it, imperfections to save people and to do what God needs to do. So we do not have to be perfect to be able to be used by God. So a lot of people are having very real encounters and experiences with Christ. And you will immediately, when you meet Christians, and a lot of people call themselves Christians, for sure. And you also get people who, they won't call themselves Christians. They will rather refer to themselves as followers of Christ because of that bad rap that Christianity has. But if Christians actually would get to know God and God's heart for people and turn their hearts towards Him, that is when things happen, and when you are experiencing that absolute love of Christ. And I've spoken about this many times because it is really an experience to actually experience that. You cannot not follow Christ, and because of that experience. And I still pray every day that everybody will have that experience, whether they're Satanist, or atheist, or Christian, it doesn't matter, because it does change your life. At the moment, though, Christians are supposed to be the representation of Christ to people who don't know him. It's not going very well. Let's be very honest. It's not, and it's very sad to see. I've also seen that a lot of people who are rejected by the church think this is God rejecting them, and that's why they go to things like Satanism and things like that. And it's also the same when we help people to get out of Satanism, the ones who reach out, because I don't push Christ on people. I don't try to convert people. People contact me when they're ready, or it's through their families or whatever. But then you have a person that has this very skewed vision or version of what God is, because that's how it's been represented to them. You see, so that's part of the problem. And you almost have to show people how to connect with God in their own way, how to meet Jesus and allow Jesus to actually come into your life and have that relationship. And that relationship needs to be above the relationship you have with religion or with a church. Otherwise, you're not going to really truly know and experience who Christ is. And you're also not going to know when the Holy Spirit is actually speaking to you or convicting you of something. So that is a process I had to go through myself. I had to and when I actually and Adri can also speak about that if she wants, but when I actually got to know who God really is and God's heart, it's like it's so almost removed from the people that is representing him at the moment.
And what do you say to people that say that you practicing New Age Christianity?
I don't understand, number one, how what I'm doing is New Age. Because,
I don't understand the difference particularly.
Because I have experience with New Age, like in my occult days, right? So I do not, you should maybe ask them. That's my.
What is the difference between New Age and, I guess, so Christianity?
So New Age would be saying something like that it's Christ consciousness, for instance, and it is to be like Christ, but not really to follow him. So you can believe in it, but you're not really following Christ. You're not reading the Bible. You are not. So
it's like your own version.
Correct. Where I'm a Christian because I met Jesus. Do you understand? And I follow Jesus. That's why I call myself a Christian. I'm not a Christian because of doctrines and all sorts of religious things and da. I do read the Bible, but the Holy Spirit opens it up for me and it becomes alive. It's not just a book. Do you understand? And I think people are threatened by that. A lot of people, and again, it's the religious people. You know, it's like religious Christians or the Pharisees, if we can call them that. So they are very threatened when a person actually has a relationship with God and have direct access to God and can hear God's voice and can speak to God. It's not about following ritual or going to church every Sunday, anything like that. So that's why people would maybe refer to it as New Age, as well as maybe the aspect where we are, when I'm saying we, the people I'm involved with in ministry, we are almost all the time involved with deliverance. So a lot of Christians would say, but that is also New Age because you are helping people to be freed from demons and stuff. Yet a third of Christ's work on this earth was deliverance. But we forget this. So I think maybe they put labels on things and saying it's New Age just because they don't understand it. And like I said, that's okay. That's maybe a question to ask these people. Yeah. Why are you saying that I'm practicing something that's New Age? And I've mentioned this many times before. I do not actually have time, and I do not really care much to try to convince people or, you know, because there's so much work at the moment that needs to be done to, number one, empower the body of Christ so that they are ready for spiritual warfare, that they're equipped, that they know what their identity in Christ is. So those are the things that I focus in on more than really anything.
Yeah.
Sorry if I interrupted.
Rather than the labels, yeah. And what do you say to people that say that you can't be a Christian if you're gay? And I know we've spoken about this in probably every episode. I don't think we've actually got into it, though.
Yes.
How do you feel about people that say that you cannot be a Christian if you're gay.
Okay, so number one, I am not gay. I don't identify with that label, but I think they're referring to the fact that I'm married to a man. That's probably where that comes from. But anyway, what I would say to any gay person or gay Christian is that we have to understand that the Bible is written in a certain context, and it's translated from it's translated from original Greek. The word homosexual was never in the Bible. There was a word what they seen, and it's asakondonai is the Greek word. So that actually refers to pedophilia. So that word was changed to homosexual later, but whether that is the argument or not, the Bible also clearly states that whomever believes in Jesus Christ shall receive the kingdom of God. It doesn't say straight people or white people or whatever. So that's one thing I would definitely say.
So why do they keep bringing it up? I don't.
Because it's a way that if you can focus on other people's sin, you can elevate your own holiness. Do you understand? So and also what we have to remember is that homosexuality, or let's say people who identify with certain genders, that would be not gender, sorry, gender roles and sexual orientation and things. It's different to say this is my orientation as opposed to I am, because anything that takes your identity away from who you are in Christ, I also have a problem with that. That doesn't mean you can't be gay or lesbian or bisexual or whatever, but what we have to understand as well is like no sin is bigger than the other sin. Do you understand? So you cannot say because of this one sin, a person goes to hell or can't be a Christian. It clearly states in John, it's also in Romans, that nothing can actually separate you from the love of God through Jesus Christ. So that means nothing. Whether you're gay, whatever sins you've done, we all have sin. This is the thing. So nobody is without any sin. It's through Christ, it's through the salvation of Jesus that God has grace on us that we enter the kingdom of heaven. So, and that's for every person, whether they are gay, straight, like I said, bisexual, whatever race they could be. So, and again, this is a concept that a lot of people struggle with, because you will always get gatekeepers in any religion or community and say that, no, but we are the ones who determine whether a person can enter the kingdom of God or not. The kingdom of God is not
They think they are God.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So if you are without sin, by all means, but nobody is. No sin is bigger than the other. You can't say that you have a little sin or you have this big sin. God says in his word, all sin is sin. All sin is forgiven. And it doesn't give us license to sin. It's just that we can repent for what the Holy Spirit convicts us as an individual. So let's say, for instance, the Holy Spirit tells me, Riaan, you should not drink. I can't go to another person and say, God says drinking is a sin. Because for me, the Holy Spirit convicts me of that. Do you understand? Of that thing. So therefore, I shouldn't do it because it could keep me away from my relationship with God or the covenant that God wants with us. So this is where a lot of people also get it wrong, because they think that if something they are convicted of a sin, that this is now a sin for everybody and you should condemn other people for the same thing. And we are not in a position to condemn as Christians. We are supposed to love one another. That's what Christ said. That's how people will know you are my disciples. Love one another. So I think the gospel of grace and God's grace is also very offensive to Christians, religious Christians, because they can't take credit for it. You see, this is the thing. And these are the things that God has revealed to me. So, yeah, I think that's what I have to say about that.
And I think that was a lot of the, let's say, like the ugliness of Christianity is what my experience was of Christianity at this point. It's like Christianity was not portrayed to me as loving. It was not portrayed to me as everyone's welcome. It was not portrayed to me as a safe space. My experience of it, it was like you will be judged, you will be condemned, you're convicted of all these things, and you are less than us. Like, we are better than you. And holier than thou, and like that whole experience. Like, I unfortunately did not have that experience in Christianity where it felt at all like something that I wanted to explore
Be a
further.
part of,
Yeah,
yeah.
or be a part of, And I think there's a big difference between being Christian because you grew up Christian and that's just how your family is and you follow that path, and being Christian in having an experience with God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Like, there's two very, very different experiences that's playing out there. And unfortunately, my experience up until a certain point was just of I still call it the ugly Christianity, but it was the ugly side. Through conversations I've had with Riaan and seeing him go through his deliverance and the counseling sessions he attended, and naturally he also met people that was different, that was Christian but different to the type of Christians that I knew. He started to introduce me to these people as well. I started to meet these people, and I was like, but this is very different to what my worldview has been shaped for Christianity. Like, there's a different side of this, and these are people who actually have a relationship with God. This isn't just reading scripture out of a book and condemning me or saying you can and you can't. This was a lot deeper. There was a much deeper essence within these people. And I thought, wow, that is like, there was a glimpse of that when I was in Mauritius, of that God presence, but not in totality necessarily. And through meeting all these other people, I started to, it's like your heart softens. Your heart starts to soften, and you start to have a lot more compassion for people in a sense as well. And again, this is, I think, how God worked through me gently, as he gently introduced to me to people who actually know God. They actually had an experience. They understand more. And it took very long for me to get to the point where I was like, actually, like, I want to be baptized, and that only happened this year in May.
And you're gonna go get it done soon.
It's coming up, 3rd of November.
And
I prayed a lot for her, by the way.
I'm sure you did.
I think a lot of people did.
Yeah.
And that I found out, I think it was around about the time when I said to him, I want to get baptized, which was earlier. Yeah, it was like around about May. And because previously, like, I spoke about it, but I wasn't that sure of it. And in May, again, I had an encounter in Mauritius, and there's a pattern starting to come out here that clearly Mauritius is the place where
Was it a more powerful encounter?
Oh, yes. So my husband and I went there for our 10-year wedding anniversary, and he decided he wants to climb this mountain on Mauritius called Le Morne. And we're not hiking people. We're not even really fit people at this point. But he really felt he wanted to do this. So I was like, okay, let's go do this. This can't be that intense if they're letting tourists do it. And there was like a guide that you can hire and you can go do this with. And I was like, yeah, let's just go do this. New experience. Waking up 3 o'clock in the morning, we start hiking this mountain. And we're hiking in the dark now. You start in the dark and it's just vertical. And I said to the guide, like halfway through, I was like, I don't think I can do this. Like now at this point, we really have to climb the mountain like a monkey almost. Like you have to like physically climb this mountain. I said, I don't think I can do this. And he said to me, you know what? I'm not going to let you go. I'm going to stay with you the whole time. Are we going to do this? I was like, okay. And he showed me like step by step how to do this. But in that time, even getting like to that point of the mountain, I started to just also process a lot of the conversations we've been having about the conversations we had about maybe like I should do a baptism, like maybe, that is the next step for me. And I needed to get confirmation on that as well. So I was really thinking a lot and soul searching here and having conversations with God while I'm walking up this mountain. And the guide helped me and we were climbing this mountain and he was amazing and encouraging me and reminding me of like how powerful your mind can be and how you can do this. And I just thought, wow, this is such a amazing person to be here to guide me through this. Like I just feel so safe right now. And we started climbing and we got to like halfway, not to the top, like almost at the top. So like 3/4. And there was this beautiful sunrise coming up. And I was like, wow, this is so worth it now. Like I did the hard work. And he was like, you can do this. I'm not letting go. I'm believing in you. And in that moment, there was also just this resemblance of like how that relationship with God have grown for me, where he didn't let me go. He showed me every step in the way. And when I didn't know, he like literally said, put your hand here, just like God did in that way as well. And for some reason, in that moment, through God's grace, I made a connection that God is so much bigger than what you ever thought. Like, I kind of had an idea of that before that experience in May, but now it was just blown out of proportion. And I got really emotional. And we did the final little bit to the top, and I got to the top. And the first thing I saw was a big, big cross on the mountain. Like, there's an actual physical cross on this mountain. And I was in absolute awe. And there were so many connections being made in that journey up this mountain. And having this amazing guide there by my side. And I just looked at my husband and I said, like, it's time. I need to be baptized. And he looked at me and said, that's a good choice. And it was the most amazing epiphany, if I can say it in that sense. It was just, you look back at everything else and you go, there was so much hurt, there was so much pain, and I was involved with so many people who were so hurt. But even in that state where I was being condemned by so many Christians and so many threats came in from Christians, and God still didn't leave me. He got me out of that to show me what he really is, and that is not it. And again, through his grace, I was able to accept that and to open my heart to that immense amount of unconditional love. God loves us no matter who we are. And that is the beauty of what I felt was a very, very rough journey to get there. And that's when I came back. I still sent him a couple of pictures off the top of the mountain, and I said, like, it's time. I want to be baptized. And I think you just sent back like a thumbs up and a heart.
Riaan loves the thumbs up emoji. Every time I say it, like,
and I was like,
thumbs up.
I think at that point maybe he was having his own emotional experience.
Absolutely.
Because when I saw the thumbs up and the heart, I knew he has now also felt something in this moment. And yeah, I came back and we started having more discussions surrounding all of that. And that's the first time I came back to South Africa and I bought this. It's one of the first things I bought when I came back to South Africa, and I proudly started wearing that because in that moment I've already given my heart to Jesus.
And then
What a journey, eh?
Then we had to find a pastor to do the baptism. So that was quite a mission as well.
That's been a mission. Because,
Why don't they want to do it?
you know what? It's more a case of, again, the type of Christians that he spoke about, where you can only have salvation through them or through their way. And there was very much a sense of like, you now have to join a church and be there every week and do these classes, and you have to do conversion therapy, and like there's a lot of stuff they wanted me to jump through. And I felt I have a relationship with God. And also the term baby Christian being thrown around, because now you're like new to Christianity.
Yeah. They're
Meanwhile,
kind of like demeaning you or like
Yes,
looking down
exactly.
upon you.
It's a form of Christian bullying, and it is going around
And
quite a lot at the
unfortunately,
moment.
I did see that part of it. But because I've had this experience with God, because I've seen that is not what God is, I was able to see through that, you know. And I have tried going to church in that sense, but oftentimes people are more interested in the Satanist story than they are about who you are now. And I'm a completely different person. I am literally renewed as a person as well. So that part of me doesn't even exist anymore. And I'm not going to church to speak about that. I'm going to church to build a relationship with God. But there is obviously that interest of the Satanist aspect, and I'm not interested. So I don't necessarily go to church in a building every Sunday. Like, I attend an online church and I do it that way, because that for me is, I get more from that than going to the actual physical building.
You're more comfortable with it,
more comfortable. And the focus isn't so much on my past. It's more about my future now.
Yeah.
So that was beautiful. But yes, finding someone to do a baptism who isn't pushing, you know, their status on you. That's been
They're just accepting you. Yeah.
and just accepting me for who I am and understanding the relationship I have with God, and that I have that. It's almost like a question like, how do you know you opened your heart to Jesus? Like, I think that is one of the most condescending things you can say to someone who has accepted Jesus as their
Yeah, and
savior.
I've said that many times because I at the moment I'm dealing with a lot of survivors coming out of Satanism and going through salvation, and then I try to place them in churches closest to where they live. So in the last 2 years, out of 38 people that I've witnessed in terms of their deliverance and their reparation period, and that I've connected with churches that said initially they would be open to that, only 7 of those people are still in church. A lot of them also left because of judgment and ridicule and people questioning their salvation. And I always say that if you question my salvation or if you question other people's salvation, I'm going to question the Holy Spirit in you, because if you say you're a Christian and you have gone through salvation, you will have the Holy Spirit and you will have discernment, and you will know when somebody has met Christ. You will not even doubt it for a second, because it is that obvious. Even if somebody claims they are a Christian, but they're not, you will know. But if you actually question people's salvation, like with Jesus, then I will question such a person, like whether they have the Holy Spirit or not. But so point being, it's very difficult to actually find churches that is open. They can say they are, but then I had people who I connected with churches contacting me and say, yeah, but people literally get up when they sit down in church. People around them will literally go up and sit somewhere else, things like that, or judging their tattoos, or all those type of things. And that is, again, it's not the heart of Jesus. That is not God. You will never be judged like that by God. God will meet you wherever you are. It will be like saying, oh, come and take a shower. Just be clean first before you come and take the shower. That's that whole concept of religion once again. Because when we come to Christ, when we come to Jesus, it doesn't matter where we are, where we come from, what we've done.
Come as you are.
Yeah?
Come as you are.
Yeah. So there is, fortunately, so I don't want to leave it like sounding very grim, but no, so fortunately there's smaller groups of people that have formed these churches now, and there's also other churches that I found, they are literally few and far between, but that is completely accepting that they are doing the work that Christ is supposed to do, and people can come to them openly without. So we did find a church like that. And we did meet a pastor who's incredible. He's also, I've been on a bit of a journey with him as well. I also go to his church now. But yeah, and he has agreed to do the baptism for her, because he knows that this is what it's about. It's not about jumping through hoops. It's not about proving yourself. It's about making a declaration to whoever comes to witness that this is now who I am. I am a new creation in Christ. I want to be baptized. And
it wasn't the sense of I had to prove that I'm good enough to be baptized, or I'm good enough to be a Christian. And I think that was the previous experience. It's like I consistently had to prove that I'm good enough to be a Christian, or good enough to have Jesus' love. And that's not what God is about.
Yes.
Everyone is worthy of God's love.
Yes.
It doesn't matter where you are in your life or who you are worthy of God's love. And I think people have changed that into a sense where people don't feel that they are. And that is sad to me, because everyone is. It doesn't matter where you are now, what your past was. It's not important. Like, God loves you and you are worthy. And that's one of the most important things that I got out of this whole experience, is that we are all worthy, and we've always been worthy, and nothing can take our worthiness away from us, not in God's eyes. And I think if we as humans judge people as being worthy or not worthy, then we are not standing with God anymore.
Amen, sister.
And I think just to end off, one of the things, and I also not sure, we've done so many episodes now, forgetting what we've spoken about or not, but we spoke about, you mentioned the satanic agenda, right? What is, in short, the satanic agenda? What is their plan?
Yeah, so look, the satanic agenda is something that it's around the world. the satanic leaders is very much aware of that agenda and what needs to happen, and it gets updated almost every 10 years. So when I was a Satanist just almost 3 years ago still. So when I looked at the agenda then, it was for up to 2027, certain things that we're planning. It's about desensitizing the public for satanic imagery, so that Satanism can become more prominent and open.
You often see it in movies or music videos.
So there's symbols and things. Satanic influences is very much part of it. There's also the thing about getting certain religions, so Christianity, for instance, but also others, so that it becomes almost like illegal, so that there can be one unified religion at the end of it, connecting to the United Nations type of thing. So a lot of the division that we currently see in churches, in Christian churches, there is massive division. There's massive, people can't agree on theology, denomination, what is sin, what is not sin, all those type of things. So that is actually part of it. So there's gonna come a time in like I said, planned for 2027, where the UN is going to come forward and say, okay, each religion that is at the moment in the world, what is that religion about? Can the leaders of that religion agree on what that religion actually stands for and means? And if they can't, they will say, okay, so there's not enough people to agree in terms of leaders what Christianity is. That's one of them. And to say, okay, because this is not something that everybody can agree on, it should not be legal in the public. It shouldn't be allowed. You shouldn't be allowed to talk about it. You shouldn't be allowed to advertise on the outside of buildings that this is a church, etc., etc., etc. So it's things like that. And I'm not saying that will happen. I'm just saying in terms of that agenda, that's very much. There's also a lot about stealing certain people's identity for other purposes, things like that. So it's a lot of different things. It's not like one mission, because I've heard other people talk about this agenda as well, and I'm like, that is not exactly, because there's reality and then there's conspiracy theories, obviously. So it's basically just to make Satanism more powerful, more influential, in terms of world, more acceptable, without people realizing that they're engaging in Satanism. That is the agenda in a nutshell.
Okay. Whew, I think that really pretty much covers everything. Hey, I mean, is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we end off?
I think we could. I think this was.
Yeah, this was really good. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Adri, for coming down and sharing your story.
Thank you.
It was lovely to meet you.
You too.
And Riaan, it was lovely to meet you again. Every time I see you, you're a different person.
Thank you.
A better person.
Thank you.
No,
Beautiful thing to say.
No, but really, I wanted to say thank you so much for coming on all these different times, I hope this isn't the last one. If something happens in the future, we'll definitely bring you back on. But it's been quite the journey, really, when you look back. I mean, we've had like a whole it's like a whole series of your life. It's amazing to watch.
And thank you for inviting me.
Anytime.
Really appreciate it.
Anytime. But anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Wide Awake podcast, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye.